Good afternoon, everybody. I declare the Ordinary Council meeting of 16th July 2025 open at 3:30. I remind all present that mobile phones must be switched off before the meeting and that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Wingecarriby Shire Council acknowledges the Gundungurra and Tharawal people as the traditional custodians of this land. I pay my respects to the traditional custodians, their ancestors who cared for this country for many thousands of years, and their elders and descendants who continue to care for country. I'd also like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples, including those here today. Councillors, you are reminded of the oath of affirmation of office made by you under section 233A of the Act and your obligations under Council's Code of Conduct to disclose and appropriately manage conflicts of interest. We have no apologies. We'll now move to the minutes, confirming the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of June 2025. I will take these as read. Could I get a seconder, please? Councillor Duffy. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Kent.
I declare pecuniary interest in one of the items in the mayoral minute, the Mosfale plastics recycling facility, as our residence is within 500 metres of the site. And I'll be excusing myself from the chamber when that item is discussed.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Russell.
I declare a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in agenda item 9.12, but it's a close association with a representative from the New South Wales Police, but we're both operating in professional capacities with no personal vested interests. Declare and remain.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Any other conflicts? Okay, great. We move on to our first mayoral minute. Councillors, the recommendation is that Council note the findings of the LG New South Wales cost shifting report for the 23-24 financial year. A copy of the LG New South Wales cost shifting report be placed on the Council's website so that our communities can access it. Council write to the Premier, New South Wales Treasurer and New South Wales Minister for Local Government seeking that they urgently address the costs through a combination of regulatory reform and appropriate funding. Would anyone ask to speak to this? Great, I'll now put the motion. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mellon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, like all of us, are disappointed to hear about this increase in cost shifting. I would like to make a comment that whilst it's disappointing for costs to be shifted onto local government, we also must keep in mind that we can't then also shift costs onto ratepayers unnecessarily, and we must always exercise financial discipline as a culture, and at every point in decision making on funding, look for the value of our spending and decide based on what is needed and not what is just a want. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moylan. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Okay, with that, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Next we have the mayoral minute 2, and the recommendation is that sorry. I'll wait for you to leave the room. Apologies, Councillor Kent. The recommendation is that Council note correspondence from New South Wales Independent Planning Commission advising that Plasrefine Recycling has lodged an appeal in New South Wales Land Environment Court against the decision of IPC to refuse SSD 9409987. 2, note that it is not a respondent to the proceedings, however Council retains a legitimate interest as a formal objector and as a local planning authority in the Southern Highlands Innovation Park. 3, reaffirm its strong opposition to the proposed Mosfale plastics recycling facility as set out in Council's submission to the IPC dated 30 October 2024 and in previous Council resolutions. 4, write to the IPC requesting they strongly defend its decision for refusal and offer assistance by way of Council's professional officers who prepared Council's submission as expert witnesses with local knowledge alongside any other technical reports Council has. 5, write to both state MPs, the member for Wallandilly, Judy Hannon, and member for Goulburn, Wendy Tuckerman, to seek their support and advocacy in this important state matter for our community. 6, Request the General Manager provide a further report on the response from the IPC, and that includes costs and implications for Council. Would anyone like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is one of the most important decisions we'll be making, I would say, in our term. So I do have some questions, if you could bear with me.
Sure.
First of all, to the Mayor and the General Manager, have council staff engaged the community in arriving at this position?
Sure. So yeah, as soon as we were notified, obviously we had a bombardment of media inquiries. So we instantly reiterated our position, saying that we're against, and we've always been against, and we will continue to be against, as per resolutions. We then, on the Friday the 11th, we then met in the park with the community, and at that stage I didn't have a whole heap of communications. I just said, look, we're going to put in a mayoral minute. It's heavily, I need a huge amount of advice, obviously, from professional staff, professional officers. And then I did try to circulate, well, we did on the Sunday the 13th, I updated councillors in person of the broad brushstrokes of it, again, not knowing the full scope. On Tuesday at 2 p.m, I sent all councillors a draft, indicating that I would publish that night because I was trying to get it out to the public as quick as possible. I then rang all councillors to sort of gauge their comfort levels. On Tuesday at 9 p.m, the staff kindly worked well outside their work hours to publish so the community would have it as soon as possible. And then here we are now with a mayoral minute to resolve. Did you have anything further to add, General Manager?
No, Mr Mayor, I think you've covered it. Thank you.
Anything further?
Yes, and another question. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I understand that the community members came to this place to have a meeting about the topic of Plasrafine, and I understand that they were advised to move from this public place to the park. Who made that decision, and what was the reason?
My understanding was that my correspondence had been with the media, who wanted me to meet actually at Beaconsfield, and they wanted, it was ABC, and they wanted a larger area. And then I sort of said, well, I can meet at the park, and then from there, General Manager, do you want to add in from that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. To Councillor, there wasn't a formal request to Council to meet here. The request came via, I think, a social media post that alerted us to the fact that there was a desire to meet here. In talking with the media outlet and also being mindful that it is school holidays and there are other activities occurring, the park was chosen as the venue, which the media were very comfortable with.
And I should add that, yeah, the media wanted to meet me at Beaconsfield, but the community I knew were at the park. So I did the initial meeting at the park, and then I followed on to the ABC to still do follow-ups at Beaconsfield. Anything else?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Mayor to the General Manager, has Council received the full appeal documents?
General Manager.
You, Mr Mayor? No, Councillor.
Thank you. And again, through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager, has Council had any contact with the IPC about the appeal without revealing the content of any discussions?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, as you'd be aware, councillors, that the notice that Council received, we've had 4 working days, if you include today, since the announcement of the appeal was made public. That's when we became aware of it. Following that, we have had professional officers reach out to the IPC to see who is best placed to talk with us, and we're yet to arrange a meeting.
Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. To you, Mr Mayor, could you please help me understand how you arrived at the position in the mayoral minute today?
Yeah, look, with much help from our professional executive staff. Obviously, it was an urgency motion, and I needed a huge amount of advice from our professional staff. I'm very comfortable with where we've landed, and that came from our planning department, our general manager, and our directors.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And lastly, given the large amounts that we are spending on other items such as playground upgrades, 500,000 per year on the art gallery, etc., would you consider a comparatively small amount that we could spend on seeking legal advice as to the prospects of success appropriate?
Gentleman, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So in relation to the matter, and I will ask the Director Communities in Place to also add to this, it's, yes, there is an issue of cost, but it's also an issue of process. And as the Mayor mentioned, in formulating his mayoral minute, he has taken advice from staff who have been intimately involved in fighting this proposal over the last 4-5 years. And I think it's important for the council and the community to note that council's position of opposition to this development has not shifted. It is still opposed to that proposal on that site for the very reasons that this council has continued to resolve and oppose the development. I'll ask the Director to talk to the process and also the benefit of being outside of the conciliation process. Thank you, Mr McCabe.
Through you, General Manager. This is state significant development of which council were not the consent authority. Generally speaking, the Land Environment Court matters that council are respondents to when we are the consent authority, and this is one where we are not. But what I will say is, through experience, when you are a respondent to an application, each party has to register a statement of facts and contentions to the court, and there's a commissioner that oversees the process thereafter. And the first step is what I call a Section 34 conference, which is a conciliation process, and where the commissioner expects parties, whether you're the applicant, whether you're a respondent, to reduce the scope of those facts and contentions to the minimum possible. So in essence, if council are a respondent, I would say you're probably acting contrary to council's formal resolutions to totally oppose. That would probably be my first point there, because the court will oblige you as a respondent to facilitate conciliation, where council have principally always opposed. So that's the first point. I mean, costs, I don't really have to explain costs, to be honest. You either see the value in going through a legal process or you don't. What I will say in relation to the model that we've faced today, up to date on this application, has been one where we are not the consent authority, and the formula has worked in that it was refused. And it was refused because council could voice total opposition, could give critical context, professional advice, could commission expert advice. So that, in my opinion, I don't think that opportunity will diminish. I'd be surprised if the IPC diminished that, because if we had a facility to communicate with them and said, what about X, what about Y, what about Y, if they want to defend their decision, I don't see why they wouldn't hear the voices, whether it be from the community or the council. So that's sort of some context as to why you'd consider joining or not. But I would say the formula to date has worked. Keep it that way.
Councillor, in your previous minute, you talked to fiscal responsibility. So yes, that is a factor, not the be-all and end-all, but as you've heard, there is further implications, not just that of fiscal responsibility, but yes, we are using 52,000 residents' ratepayers' money, and haven't made any decisions lightly. I'll put it that way. So thank you.
Mr Mayor, I'll move an amendment.
Sure thing. Can I get the words, please?
That council, so replacing point number 6, that council incur spending necessary to obtain advice on the prospects of success of the appeal and advice from a leading land and environment court, King's Counsel, when we have the documents related to the appeal. And actually, with 6, if we could make that Roman numeral 1, please. And then after appeal, next paragraph, Roman numeral 2. Thank you. Report back to council. In a closed session, once the briefing advice is received for further deliberation. And I reserve my right to speak to this amendment, Mr Mayor. So, councillors and Mr Mayor, it's noted that...
Sorry, councillor. I just double check. The words are okay first, if that's all okay. And just before you kick off there, gentlemen, do you have any... look, I know that we aren't allowed to have private briefings, so I just get you to clarify that. And number 2, do you have any commentary on this advice with the King's Counsel, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor, in terms of incurring spending, we clearly have to identify a budget line item, but that is doable in the report back. In terms of a closed session, under the Code of Meeting Practice, there are provisions, and the manager governance can elaborate on those. Thank you. Ms Lickard.
Can I just confirm, councillor, are you talking about a closed session in a council meeting or a closed session in a briefing session?
In a council meeting, because then we'll need to resolve. So closed because it's commercial in confidence and also legal privilege, but then the reason for it being in a meeting is so that councillors can then debate, deliberate and then resolve.
Yeah. So yeah, there's clear provisions in the Code of Meeting Practice for us to move into closed session if it aligns with those provisions, yes.
Councillor, it's not clear to me what you're asking. Is you asking the success of the appeal in general?
Mr Mayor, perhaps it'd be better if I speak to this amendment for 3 minutes and answer that question.
Let's have to have it seconded first, please. Councillor Russell. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I note first and foremost that the cost referred to for this advice is negligible because, and it's reasonable in all of the circumstances, in the event that councillors would like to hear the cost that I'm thinking, based on my own research, my own network, I'm happy to share that in a closed session of this meeting, and under the reason it's commercial and we don't want to broadcast how much we're prepared to spend. So costs aside, the prospects of success advice is a very reasonable step to take in litigation. It's not the full litigation costs, it's advice on the prospects of success. Secondly, a Section 34 conference conciliation will be held, and the IPC as a model litigant will need to settle this case. We don't want a settlement. We don't want plastic factory in Mosfale. Nextly, seeking advice on prospects of success is a very reasonable step to take, and we simply cannot make an informed decision until we have this advice. It's a small step at a very reasonable cost so that councillors can make an informed decision on what is a very critical decision for the community. Lastly, Mr Mayor and councillors, but for the community, we would not be here with this opportunity to stop what will be the nation's biggest plastic factory in Mosfale. Instead, we would be standing next to the Premier of this state while he opens the nation's biggest plastic factory in Mosfale. Now, the community have led us to this opportunity, and Mosfale Matters and Ms Anna Phillips and Ms Heidi Fagan are to be congratulated. They have led us to this opportunity. We must take this opportunity, Mr Mayor. It's our turn now to lead the community. We must not mislead the community. The logic that this is a state issue does not weigh up. If it's a state issue, why did we ever get involved with the IPC and with this process? We can't pick and choose our logic based on convenience, and when it gets difficult, we have to do the hard yards. So, Mr Mayor, I will be standing with the community on this one and taking this very reasonable step to get prospects of success advice. Thank you.
Councillor, with respect, maybe it doesn't make sense to me. Incur spending necessary to obtain advice on the prospects of success. You haven't on the success of the entire case? On the success of what exactly? So you're thinking that a Queen's Counsel can come to us and say, I think you're going to win or I think you're going to lose? King's Counsel, sorry. So what is you're thinking, and then with that advice, if they say yes you can or no you can't, what do you want us to do with that information?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the question. It's important that we understand this fully. I don't claim to be a land and environment lawyer, but I have got experience in litigation. It's a very usual and sensible step to take, to pay a certain amount of money just to get advice on the prospects of success. Where the lawyer, and I'm suggesting a King's Counsel, given the significance, and an instructing solicitor can give us advice on the strength of the appeal and whether we have a chance, a likelihood of winning. And then with that advice, we can then deliberate and decide whether we want to go into litigation or not. And that advice will also help us understand the procedure, timeframes, likely total costs. None of it's guaranteed, but it's advice that we can then use to make an informed decision.
Thank you, Councillor. So you're wanting advice on whether the IPC will win against the applicant or will lose against the applicant, because we are not a party to this. It is between the IPC and the applicant. So you're wanting advice on whether you think that would be successful or not, and you want us to have that in the chamber, and you want us to acknowledge that advice?
So it's advice on the strength of the appeal, whether the Plasrefine is likely to win the appeal, and then advice on our case. then we can make a decision. Do we want to take this step of full litigation or not?
Okay, General Manager, is someone going to give us advice on someone else's case? Like as in their case? Sorry. I'm quiet.
Thank you, Mr Merrill. I will call on Mr McCabe with this. I think the first point is actually understanding the points of contention and the statement of facts. What is it that the applicant is, what's their basis of legal argument to appeal the decision of the IPC? And at this point in time, we don't have access to that information. And until we have that information, and as reflected in the original mayoral minute, until we have that information, it is very difficult to understand the strength of their argument. Mr McCabe, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Mr Mayor, I think I've been misrepresented. If I could talk to that, please.
Go ahead.
Back to my amendment, the last phrase in 6 Roman numeral 1, I've said when we have the documents related to the appeal, because to the General Manager's valid point, we need to see the actual appeal.
Okay.
They could be, we're basing this decision today on a lot of assumptions. We don't know what they'll appeal on. It could be a very minor point, it could be a lot of points. So we need to see the appeal documents, get legal advice on just the prospects of success.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Mr McCabe, were you adding?
For you, General Manager, I don't have anything further to add. I think both the General Manager and Councillor Moylan have made the point that we don't have the information at hand yet.
Okay. Councillor Russell.
I have questions for you, Mr Mayor. Have you seen the nature of the direction or the legal advice that has informed your mayoral minute
No, as
on
I
the
said
procedural elements
before,
of the
I took
appeal?
advice from our directors and executive staff. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager, in order for councillors to be appraised of what the direction and advice was sought from council's legal advisors to clarify the procedural elements of the appeal, would council need to move into closed session?
General Manager.
All right, through you, Mr Mayor, could you please restate that, councillor?
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager, in order for councillors to be informed of the legal advice sought from the GM and the directions sought from the GM from council's legal advisors to clarify the procedural elements of the appeal, would council need to move into closed session?
Thank you, Mr.
General Manager.
You're right. Yep. Thank you, Mr Mayor. So as the Mayor, I think, has mentioned, we are 3 or 4 days, working days in. We do not have formal legal advice. We have preliminary advice. And what was in the original minute was that once we have further information, that a report be brought back to the council about implications for council, including costs. Thank you.
Councillor Russell.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager, thank you. Yes, I have been listening to what's been going on. I am interested in whether, if councillors were to be advised of the preliminary verbal and email advice that the GM has sought from council's legal advisors to clarify the procedural elements of the appeal, would we need to move into closed session?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, as you've acknowledged, Councillor Russell, it is preliminary advice. It's not formal advice. It's not firm advice. What I would suggest is, as taking Councillor Moylan's point, if council wants formal legal advice, then that needs to be pursued. And then, as Councillor Moylan suggested, it could be brought to a closed session. Thank you.
Councillor Russell.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager. Is there an issue in sharing the preliminary verbal and email legal advice and the directions that the GM sought from Council's legal counsel with councillors prior to us making a vote on such a significant decision?
General Manager. So
Mr Mayor, just to restate, it's preliminary advice, Councillor. It's not formal advice, and I'm reluctant to share it with respect. And I'm reluctant to share that because it isn't formal advice. It's preliminary, Councillor. And I think it's important to realise we are actually fighting the same fight. We are against Plasrefine, as the Director mentioned. We have, over the last 4 or 5 years, through the work of strategic outcomes, have fought the proposal. That position has not changed. What we're talking about and what's before the Council today is the way, the tactics, the way in which to best do that, best for the community. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Russell, any further questions?
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager, is the General Manager aware that we have 28 days from the announcement in which to decide whether to launch an appeal or not?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, as set out in the original mayoral minute and the sixth point in the mayoral minute, yes, we're aware there is a time frame, Councillor. We're also aware that we do not have all the information to provide a clear position and understand what the state government and how they're going to fight this appeal. And so point 6 of the original mayoral minute was to request that the General Manager provide a further report on the response once we have that information from the IPC, and that report come back to the Council, including costs and implications for Council. As part of that, in terms of implications, that includes risk, it includes legal, it includes financial, it includes environmental, and it includes social. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor?
I appreciate that the General Manager, through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager.
Councillor, have you got a direct, succinct question, please?
Yes, I do. Through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager, I appreciate that the advice that we have sought thus far is not a full legal brief. However, due to the time frame and due to the nature of our fiduciary duties and due to the seriousness of this issue, what would be the reasons for not sharing in closed council with councillors before they make the decision the directions?
The General Manager has answered your question.
The directions. She hasn't actually answered what would be the reasons for not giving preliminary advice, given...
Councillor, I'll just call you to order. The General Manager's answered your question. Have you got another succinct question, please? Or would you like to speak to this?
Yes, I would like to ask, Mayor, did you at any point ask the General Manager for access to the directions or legal advice personally that informed your mayoral minute?
So following your email to me asking, I forwarded it to the General Manager, and then you got your answer today, which we've seen, and I took my advice from the professional staff who have had that advice. Councillor. So,
Mr Mayor, is it true that at the community meeting on Friday, you stated that you were waiting to see the legal advice on this matter because it was still so new, or words to that effect, and that was widely published, and the community then expected that we would be learning about this legal process?
Councillor, without recalling my exact words, I come into that moment not knowing much of anything, and what I said to the community was, I need advice, and I was going back to get that advice and crafting a mayoral minute, and here we are. But if you're not happy with the mayoral minute, you're welcome to move an amendment.
I would actually like, within an amendment, I would actually like to propose propose a procedural amendment at this point, appreciating the seriousness of this issue to the health and well-being of our community, the future of council's
Councillor, what
vision.
is your procedural amendment? Just
Vision.
say the amendment, please.
I would like to propose that we move into closed session so that councillors can look at the preliminary verbal and email advice the GM sought from councillors' legal advisors to clarify the procedural elements of the appeal that have informed the mayoral minute, and also the directions that were that were given from the GM to council's legal counsel.
Okay, as you've stated, we can't have that, but I will put it to the vote of your councillors. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Moylan. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Has been lost. Councillor Russell, did you have an amendment?
We're in Councillor
Sorry.
Moylan's amendment.
Is there anything further to add to Councillor Moylan's amendment?
Yes, I would like to speak to Councillor Moylan's amendment.
You have the floor.
Appreciating the seriousness of this issue to the health and well-being of our community in the Southern Highlands, to Sydney's and Goulburn's drinking water catchment, to the future of Council's vision for the ship as an employment zone, and our own fiduciary duty as councillors. I want to take up the option that Councillor Moylan, my colleague, has so carefully crafted to make sure that we are making fully informed decisions at this juncture. We do not have much time. We do not have another council meeting prior to the closing of the date if council wishes to become a proponent and a respondent in this matter. This is not committing us to becoming a respondent, but it is certainly informing whether we need to have a seat at the table if there is any conciliation process that is underway. We don't want to conciliate with such a dangerous, hazardous idea, with no buffer zone to existing conflicting land uses and a drinking water catchment. As the Director of Communities and Place noted that carefully, I strongly support the work of council staff, and I would like to acknowledge in particular Susan Stannard, whose work I can see is the hallmark and backbone in this mayoral minute. But that does not mean that we do not have our own independent fiduciary duty as a council for democratic oversight, for bringing the community's voice to the table, and also making sure that the community can be fully informed without having to play guesswork as to what the legal process is and what our role can be in this. Time and again for this process, it has been the community and the community having council's back or leadership from the community that has pulled us out of the soup. So we need to make sure that we are taking every measure to be fully informed of this process, and so I commend Councillor Moylan for preparing this amendment.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to talk to another misrepresentation.
Okay.
Mr. Michael McCabe referred to the point about getting the appeal documents. I want to be abundantly clear here that my amendment is talking to once we get the appeal documents, then we get the prospects of success advice.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Would anyone else like to speak to this amendment? Councillor Champion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a question for the GM. This relates to there seems to be a strong implication in this amendment, on the proposed amendment, excuse me, that council will provide a stronger legal case against Plasrefine than the IPC will. Specifically, I'm referring to Councillor Moylan's noting that the IPC has a responsibility to be a model litigant and will need to settle, and also Councillor Russell's statement that we don't want to conciliate, and the implication being that if the IPC is left as the primary respondent, then there will be an expectation that that will happen. My understanding of what it means to be a model litigant is simply that claims should be dealt with promptly without causing delay, that respondents aren't buried under undue investigation, acting consistently in the handling of claims and litigation, minimising costs, not taking advantage of power, not relying on technical defences. These are the sort of the information that I can find quickly on what it means to be a model litigant. I don't understand in that context whether there is any expectation that the IPC would be required to conciliate. Do any of you, with your experience of dealing with planning issues in the Land and Environment Court, have any understanding that the IPC would be required to conciliate?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I will ask the Director Communities in Place to respond to that, given that is bread and butter and has had infinitely more experience than I'd suggest of quite a number of people in the room. Thank you, Mr McCabe.
For you, General Manager, yes, the respondent, so whoever the respondent is required to conciliate. And as stated before, there's facts and contentions published by each party, and they may be totally opposed, they may be aligned. You don't know until they're published by each party. And the conciliation is a process to reduce those facts and contentions, so find common ground, to then either seek agreement through conciliation or reduce the scope of contentions. That's really the two outcomes. That's if proceedings continue. Proceedings could be terminated, but that's only generally by the applicant.
Through you, Mr Mayor, may I ask a follow-up question, please, to the General Manager and I assume to Mr McCabe. So may I clarify that this is the case for any respondent? There is a requirement to conciliate, and that therefore if council were to become a responding party in this case, then that onus would also fall on council?
For you, General Manager, sometimes there's status of respondents, so there can be a primary respondent and secondary respondents, so depend on the status. But a respondent in general would have to be part of that process.
Sorry, just one more follow-up question through you, Mr Mayor.
Sure thing.
You mentioned earlier, Mr McCabe, Director of Communities in Place, earlier mentioned that our power to take a strong position as council would be stronger in advice to the IPC than as a party. Could you clarify that for me in relation to my question around being the responsibility to conciliate as a respondent?
For you, General Manager, I wouldn't necessarily say it's stronger. What I'd say is this council have resolved an absolute opposition to this proposal. Now, if you become a respondent through the responsible process of legal matter overseen by the court, overseen by the Commissioner, council may have to accommodate certain attributes associated with the development that we've traditionally objected to or opposed. That's what I'm saying there. Whereas if you're not a respondent, then you can clearly oppose and stand on that position. I'm hoping that provides clarity for you.
Sorry, I've got a question through you, Mayor, to the General Manager. Was legal advice sought on whether council would need to conciliate as a respondent? So are we hearing informed legal advice here?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, you're hearing years of experience, Councillor. Mr McCabe, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's my opinion through experience in relation to that. It's simple. You're obligated to go through a conciliation process and reduce the scope of issues. Now, whether it be traffic issues, whether it be plastic issues, whether it be noise issues, you're obligated to reduce that scope. So what I'm saying is if you fundamentally oppose the proposal, but yet you're forced to, let's say, water down your position. Are you actually standing up for the resolution of council to totally oppose the proposal? That's what I'm asking.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So a question through the General Manager, just to Mr McCabe's point. So would we be at risk as council then if we became a respondent? My understanding of what you're saying is that we could get into the difficult situation where we may have to support or approve things rather than have a black and white opposition to this issue. Would that be a correct understanding of what you're saying?
General Manager.
Through you, General Manager, yes. So parties sometimes are required to appoint experts, and those experts are then required to form joint reports. So independent experts of each party get together and they then publish a joint report. And that's based on their professional opinion. It's not necessarily based on what the client instructs them. So I'm hoping that provides you with some guidance.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Mullin.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I have a question. In your opinion, Mr Mayor, should we accept legal advice and the procedure of this legal process from a trained lawyer with land and environment court experience, or with the greatest of respect to Mr McCabe, to a Director of Communities and Place?
So my opinion is Mr McCabe is talking about a process, a very well-travelled process that doesn't necessarily change. So you would find that the legal advice would give similar sentiments to the process. He's only speaking to the process. Councillor Russell.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager, and likewise with similar deep respect for the depth of the Director in Communities and Places experience, has the Director of Community and Place ever been involved in an issue like this that involves the IPC and the potential for a council to be a secondary respondent and perhaps not bound to the same obligations as a state department that require mandatory conciliation? A mandatory conciliatory approach.
General Manager.
Yep. Sorry. Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr McCabe, could you maybe explain the process as well and respond?
In relation to experience, all I can say is I have been involved in state significant development applications in other LGAs that have environmental impact and are waste facilities. This was one near Port Botany. It was an incinerator as such, and it got to the point where it didn't reach any appeal. So I suppose that's...
So could I just ask the gallery to let Mr McCabe answer the question, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I appreciate it. I'm not giving any legal advice. That's a clear point. I'm answering the councillor's questions. I'm giving you my honest opinion. Whether it be the amendment, whether it be the Mayor's minute, neither of them limit seeking legal advice. And I haven't recommended not seeking legal advice. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I have a question through you, Mr Mayor, of Councillor Moylan. Councillor Moylan earlier in her preamble mentioned that councillor had been misleading the community or misled the community. Could I ask Councillor Moylan to clarify what the specifics of that, please?
Councillor Moylan, would you like to answer that question?
I'll decline to answer that question.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this amendment? Apologies, we're in amendment. Councillor Duffy.
Can we put this amendment to the vote, please?
Okay. Okay, I will put this to the vote.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, do I have a right of reply
Not in an
on
amendment.
an amendment?
Sorry, Councillor. Okay. All those in favour? Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell, those against, Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. That is lost. We are back in the main body of the mayoral minute. Would anyone like to speak to this? Councillor Duffy.
I just wanted to say we're against the Plaza Fund proposal and we always have been. And the mayoral minute does not limit legal advice at all. So there's nothing wrong with the original mayoral minute.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Mr. Mayor, in your opinion, let me gather my thoughts.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Is anyone else? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is clearly a very emotional issue. We know that. We know that councillors stood behind opposing this issue for a very long time. And I think that what we are trying to do today is take the smartest, best advice. Let's be clear, this is a state significant development, and we must take the advice of professional officers who have more experience than any of us at this table. And I think we need to be strong for the community, but we also need to be very strong for the financial responsibility of this council. We all know how we are restricted. So we must use our heads, not our emotion, to get the best possible outcome. So I feel very strongly, I'm very strongly in support of this mayoral minute.
Thank you, Councillor. Would anyone else like to speak to this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Moylan, yes.
I have a question. Is it understood that the prospects of success advice, which is a very small step at a very small cost in comparison to,
Sorry, Councillor, you're speaking to your last amendment?
no. This is a new question.
Okay.
Is it understood that the prospects of success advice, which is a very small step, which if we rule that step out, we are then doing nothing, is it understood that this prospects of success advice includes whether we should intervene in this litigation and whether we will have a chance of success, and also give us a cost estimate of the litigation so that we're not at risk of financial unnecessary spending?
So, Councillor, could you direct me as to what you're speaking about in the recommendation?
So I'm referring to point 6, where it talks to the cost and implications for council.
Mm-hmm. And what are you asking me about that?
I'm asking yourself, Mr. Mayor, if it's understood that getting advice and therefore getting the cost implications for council as detailed in point 6, if it's understood that in getting that advice, we also get advice on whether we should intervene, and we also get advice on the costs of the litigation so we can then make an informed decision. And to Councillor Smith's point, not spend unnecessarily.
I understand what you're saying. So what I'll say to that is the mayoral minute as I have it doesn't include what you're saying or asking me. I'm comfortable with the position of this minute, but what you're asking for can be added in through an amendment. So, but I'm comfortable with the position of this current mayoral minute. And those things you're asking me can be asked of the entire council through an amendment, which I believe you just did before.
With the greatest of respect, Mr. Mayor, I was asking yourself if you understood.
I voted down your amendment, that's my position.
It was more an understanding if getting the cost in your point number 6, if it's understood that we can get a cost of the whole litigation and then make a decision so that we don't fall foul of financial discipline.
So my referral to cost and implication here is in general in the scope, whether not specifically to action sought, to our role going forward. If this was resolved in this nature, what are the costs and implications? That is what the costs and implications. You're asking me if I should include further cost for further processes as in partnering, and what I'm saying to you is, no, I do not have that in here, and that is my position. But if you would like it in here, you're welcome to move an amendment.
So a question, Mr Mayor. When in point number 6 it refers to the costs, what costs are you intending there?
Specifically to that we've offered up our professional staff directors to go and speak, to go and present, to source documents. It could take 3, 4, 5 days of one of our directors or our managers' time, and it was just to seeing a cost and implications to that. And the sourcing of documents. I mean, again, with the fiscal responsibility under the PIO, I thought we were wanting to capture all costs so that we didn't have anything slipping through the cracks. I'm just making it sound. That was all.
Mr Mayor, I request that we go into a closed session so that I can talk to the likely costs involved, and I'll quote section 4.1 little c of the Code of Meeting Practice for commercial sensitivity reasons and also legal privilege.
So, Councillor, are you talking about costs off the top of your head, or are you asking for costs associated that we don't yet know, or we don't know at all?
I'm referring to point 6 and costs.
Governance, I'll just defer to governance. I don't see a need to, unless there's anything, I mean, is there anything you want to discuss? As part of that, I don't know the nature of what you want to talk about.
As I said, it's commercial sensitive. I don't want to broadcast costs to the public, so I would like to rely on 14.1 little c and discuss costs.
So are you sort of saying you want to see what it would cost to send, say, a planner for the day, or is this the nature of what you want to know?
I'd rather express that in the closed session so that I don't contravene 14.1 little c.
Okay, it's not quite clear to me what you want to do, but I'll take a seconder for that. Okay, all those in favour? Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell. Those against? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy. Apologies. Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. That is lost. Anything further, Councillor?
Are we now talking to the mayoral minute in its entirety?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I oppose this mayoral minute, particularly point number 6. As I've expressed, I think if we step over the very reasonable step of seeking prospects of success advice at a very small cost compared to a lot of the other costs that we have in our budget, including $500,000 per year for an art gallery, $3.4 million for playground renovations. We are choosing to do nothing, and it is incumbent on us to get all the information we need to be able to decide whether we should do something. And when I say something, that doesn't necessarily mean full-blown litigation. We just need specific advice on whether we should, 1, intervene, what the timeframes would be, what the likely costs would be on the prospects of our success, so that we can make an informed decision on legal advice rather than an officer's advice. And I want to make it clear that I am not proposing to spend millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars on litigation without knowing whether we have a chance of success. I had proposed a small step so that we can be properly informed on this, which is a very usual and reasonable step in all litigation matters. So I oppose this mayoral minute. I think we need to stand with the community, stand with common sense, and stand with our previous argument that this is a local council issue, which now seems to be out the door, and that it's a state issue, and get that reasonable prospects of success advice.
Thank you, Councillor. Would anybody else like to speak to this? Councillor Foley.
I'd like to speak in favour of the mayoral minute. I strongly believe that council should maintain its position that we are completely opposed to Plaza Refine in any form with any potential conditions that may be applied in a conciliation process. If we become part of that conciliation process, we're party to any conditions that are applied to this project that may become a watered down version of what we've been fighting against, and I don't want that. I want to completely oppose it. Council is not a respondent in the appeal, and the decision is being defended by the body that made the decision that's being taken to court on this, the IPC. Their expertise and authority in this area is clear. They already made a decision against it. They're not going to fall at the first hurdle. Mr McCabe, the Director of Communities and
Sorry,
Place.
could I please ask the gallery to respect the councillor's time speaking, please? It's pretty disrespectful, please.
Yeah,
Please, if you'll allow her to speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Please, if you'll allow her to speak, guys.
As the Director of Communities and Place pointed out, as a respondent, we would be party to conciliation or conditions that are applied, and I wouldn't stand for that. This approach, it doesn't reflect a lack of concern or involvement. Council has strongly opposed the project from the beginning, and that supports the community's position and the decision made by the IPC. You have to remember the IPC are a panel of expert planners, and they carefully and thoroughly examined a mountain of evidence, including conducting site visits and listening to people speaking at the hearings. They found that the site was not suitable due to its proximity to homes, its environmental and health risks, and the unacceptable impact it would have on the local area. Those things are not going to change. We're not arguing the IPC's decision today, as that decision was sound and competent, and the expectation is that it will be properly defended in court by the IPC. The evidence that supported their original decision of refusal still stands, and that's why I support this Merrill Minute as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Farrell.
I support this Merrill Minute. Council has been opposed to this development from the beginning and remains so.
Please allow the councillor
I would like
to
to remind everybody here that we are not the enemy. We are opposed to this development and will continue to do so. But we should be mindful that we cannot spend ratepayers' money on chasing something that's got nothing to do with the process. The process will be done by the IPC. They're the ones that made the decision. They're the ones that will fight it. And the court will make their decision on legal grounds, not on emotion. I'll remind everybody again, we are not the enemy. We are trying to do the right thing by everybody. Not only the people here that are opposed to it, but we've got to look after the community as well. I'm not prepared to write an open cheque. And I would remind people that I'm speaking, and I would like people to remain quiet while I'm doing so. You have your opinion, I've got mine, and I'm entitled to express it. So please be quiet.
We're not entitled to express ours.
I will leave it at that. I do support the Merrill Minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor. Look, I will ask the gallery to please be respectful when the councillor's talking. It isn't easy talking, and you need to respect them speaking, please. Councillor Russell.
While I support all of the intentions and statements in the Mayoral Minute, I do not support the process by which this has come to council. I feel like we are making the same mistakes as were made during administration when community consultations were placed, which needed actually to be community support for council, were placed after close of business hours, after council's submission had to go in. I agree with my colleague, Councillor Smith. We do need to be making these decisions with our heads. But when you make a decision with your head, you consider all options. I have asked repeatedly, what was that legal advice? What directions did we ask? Did we ask an open question? Did we ask, what are all the options that council has? And then was that advice provided to council so we could inform our community who are undergoing an unconscionable amount of stress and tension, threatening their health and well-being? I'm speaking to all of my fellow councillors here. I've been here before, and it was a nightmare back then. And yesterday, I relived the nightmare when I found out that council I as a councillor couldn't get access immediately or responsibly or openly to the legal advice on which I was going to be asked to make a decision. I didn't know my options. I still don't. I've been trying. I've been very stressed in the last few days. I have been working overtime and stressed, talking to dozens of people, trying to find out what on earth are our options, whether the Director of Communities and Place is correct in his assumptions, whether we know what our rights as a respondent might be. I shouldn't have to do that. I'm a councillor. I should be able to ask my General Manager if she can share that advice with me that she's gotten so far, if nothing else, to make sure that I feel safe and that I'd fulfil my duty in making informed decisions on the best path forward. But no, I find that I am being blocked to the information that I require to do my job on one of the most significant decisions that I am making in my council term because of the magnitude of this issue. It is not about the quality of the work that the staff have done. It's about making sure that now we have a democratically elected council, that the information flows, that the communication flows to councillors so it can flow on to the community, and rather than me spend hours trying to find information, I get it in an email when I ask for it.
Thank you, Councillor.
I am abstaining from this decision.
Thank you, Councillor. Against that? Okay, I will now put it to the vote. All those... Sorry, Councillor's leaving the room. All those in favour of the mayoral minute: Councillor Fitzpatrick, Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Smith. All those against: Councillor Moylan. And I note that he has abstained. Thank you. Okay, councillors, I'll now move a procedural motion that we resolve the order of business to be changed in order to bring forward the following items by exception, and that the officer's recommendation for each item be adopted. The items I'd like to deal with by exception are 9.9, 9.11, 9.13, 9.14. Is there anything here that anyone wants to speak to? Councillor? Sure, I can do that again. The items I'd like to move by exception are item 9.9, item 9.11, item 9.13, item 9.14. Is there anything here that you want to speak to or vote against? Okay, I'll say a seconder for that. Councillor Duffy. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. I'll move a further procedural motion that we bring item 9.12 first, so that the audience can get out of here. Seconded. And I will table Mr. Alice's Carpenter's documentation for this. And let me just get it here. Could we get that door? Oh, actually, leave the door open. Sorry, leave the door open, yeah. Item 9.12, Traffic Committee meeting on May 22nd of May. The recommendation is on page 41 of the agenda. Could I get a seconder, please? Councillor Duffy. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Russell.
I have a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the General Manager. The tabled document identifies a number of areas where council can improve in its consultation processes in this regard, because there were community members who weren't informed or their submissions weren't followed through. Will those be addressed in future by council to make sure that everyone who might be impacted by a development is
Manager.
notified?
Through you, Mr Mayor, as councillors would be aware, we're updating the communication and engagement strategy. That's due, I believe, Director Corporate to come back to council in August, and that's certainly part of that, Councillor Russell.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Duffy.
I'm just really happy that we've been able to come to a really good solution with this. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Farrell.
No, I think this is the right decision. I think we should be voting on it and get it out of the road.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Russell.
I would like to thank the Exeter community who have had to carry the load while the Traffic Committee and Council have worked through this issue, and we've finally come to common sense, and well done at Exeter.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Yes, I'd like to congratulate the gentleman who came to speak to council today and made such an impression, and also thank him for contributing to excuse me, democracy and this decision.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to this? Okay, with that, I will now put the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 9.1, Youth Council meeting outcomes from the second session. Could I get a seconder for this, please? Councillor Foley. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Yes, I just want to reiterate, Mr Mayor, that this is an inspired concept, and I'm so proud as a councillor to have this in our council. It's a platform for the youth to be involved in decision making. I do note that, and this is just a comment, I note that in the feedback from the participants of the Youth Council, a couple of things that came to my attention. One, that they're asking for public speakers who are from the community, and they're also asking for more problem-solving skills. They are also asking for real-world issues and local issues, which really struck me, and I wondered if we could add to the agenda or add to the topics of discussion our real life issue of plasrafine, and also the Mittagong pool. I noticed that's a big ideas topic. I think it would be very well rounded and serve the youth council to also add in financial sustainability concepts, so that the Youth Council can understand where this money comes from, that it comes from ratepayers, and to help their overall decision making when it comes to the big ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, I can certainly pass those sentiments on to the team when they're formulating the next sessions. We do have a presentation that I skipped by rudely, so we'll watch that now.
Youth Council hosted at Barrel High. We're in our lovely library.
Right, Youth Council round 2. My only job today is to tell the students or the Youth Council how we delivered on their last meeting. And that's the theme I want to keep setting. There's no point having it if it's just words.
We're here with Mayor Jessie Fitzpatrick. What are you most excited about for this meeting?
Can I have two things?
Yes.
One, that I get to deliver to you what we've delivered on the last feedback, so putting action into your words. And the second is Mittagong Pool Precinct. Master plan design, you guys have first dibs at throwing input into that, so can't wait.
And so we want to ask some of our Youth Council members their favourite memories at the Mittagong pool. So what were your favourite memories?
Probably just like hanging out with my friends and getting to like hang out at the pool and watching all the wildlife that would like hang around there as well.
Oh, I remember going down there with my nan and we just swam in the hot sun.
It's a huge honour to speak today at Youth Council, an inspiring and inspired group of young people, and more than ever I think we need to hear their voices, we need to hear their ideas, and we need to take notice. They're not only the future, but they're at the cutting edge of all new contemporary media, contemporary music, contemporary visual language, and contemporary ideas about how to make the place a better place to live.
This is one of our Barrel High hospitality teachers, and they've organised amazing catering today. What have we got planned?
So today we've put together a nice spread of finger food for you guys. We've done some slices and we've done some savoury food as well, like some little sausage rolls and curry puffs and some caprese skewers.
So we just finished our youth council meeting, and I just wanted to ask some of the members what they thought of today's meeting. So what did you think?
There was really good ideas spread throughout the room. Everyone was engaging very well.
Even though we don't know each other, we comes up together, work together, and different ideas.
I really enjoyed getting to hear Ben Quilty speak. I found it really interesting, and then getting to collaborate with other leaders from different schools is always really, really nice, and hearing their ideas is always really fun.
Thank you everyone for coming today. It was awesome. We had lots of really good discussion. We're all getting to know each other a bit more, so we had a lot of fun. The food was great. Thank you to the Barrel Hospitality class. Thank you to Ben Quilty for coming in and speaking. Everyone loved that. Like really great, some really great stories. Thank you to Jessie and Heather Champion for the two councillors who are here today, and to Meredith and all the other council people. It was a really awesome event. Thank you.
That's great. Okay, would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Champion, apologies.
Thank you, Mayor. Something I want to reflect again. You know, I probably will keep doing this on how great a day it was at the Youth Council, and what a privilege it is to hear from these young people. Something really critical has stayed with me from that day, and it is in the minutes and the attachments to these business papers, which is the statement that young people are seeking places where they're not judged for being young. I heard that from multiple students at the Youth Council as I was moving around the room, and it also, that repeated feedback tracks with what I've heard from other younger people in our community. We don't have enough youth-friendly spaces. We don't have a culture that celebrates youth, and I think, you know, without wanting to be too much of a downer, we should take that with us and take it seriously. We should be mindful of that when we see young people in public. This is as much their shire as it is for anyone over the age of 25. So it makes me even more grateful for the meetings where we do get to hear directly from young people and raise collective awareness about what their needs are. Just very quickly, I want to highlight a couple of things we heard. Strong interest in bike paths, a big excited support for the Mittagong precinct and public spaces generally, being places where young people can switch off, be in nature. I was personally delighted to hear how often that was raised as something that's really important to young people, as natural experiences, being in connection with our natural environment, as well as sporting and active spaces. The importance of libraries came up a lot, and spaces where it's that are indoor, that are available for them to be. It was also really good to see the youth strategy Young Wingecarribee mentioned as on exhibition, and students encouraging each other to make submissions and make comment on that strategy. And I encourage them to do this, check that it's right. And for anyone who's aware or watching this meeting, I encourage you to ask the young people in your lives to give feedback on that strategy. Just quickly, we also got to hear about some of the initiatives that are being championed by the students, including an app for PFAS analysis in waterways and supermarket products, and participating in the UN Youth Conference. I'm sure there's so much more that I haven't heard about, but having those opportunities to hear what they're championing is really amazing. And we have some very impressive leaders on our Youth Council, and it's a privilege to be guided by their advice.
Thank you. Summed it up perfectly. It is a great day. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Okay, Councillor Russell.
I would like to note that our youth are advocating for footpaths and bike paths.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. I will now put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. And I have indicated that we're going to have a short break, so we will resume at about 5:53. Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Apologies. 4:58 p.m. We are up to item 9.2, Unangola Regional Gallery. The recommendation is on page 8 of the agenda. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Smith. Are you moving that with?
Can I move it with a change?
Sure thing.
Please. And the change is nominate, and I'd like to insert my name in there, Councillor Nicole Smith.
Okay. Could I get a seconder for that, please? Councillor Champion, Councillor Smith.
It's no surprise that I feel very passionately about Nunangola and the arts in the Highlands, and so I would consider it a privilege to be able to be Council's representative on the board of Nunangola.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
I'd like to foreshadow, actually I'd like to table 2 documents, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
I've sent them around to the councillors and the executive staff. The first one is 9.1 Nunangola Regional Art Gallery Funding Agreement in the 17th of April 2024 Ordinary Meeting Minutes. And that refers to the funding agreement being reviewed in the 2025-2026 budget process. And I'd also like to table the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council for Wednesday the 10th of November 2021, and in particular page 6, where in the minute it refers to ratepayers' funds for the operation of the gallery over 5 years, and also speaks to the nature of the role of the board member.
Okay, and you have an amendment?
Yes, so I have a foreshadowed amendment.
You won't need to foreshadow, it's just an amendment.
Oh, okay.
Because we're in, we're in
yes,
the motion.
yeah.
So just get the words, please.
Okay, that council be briefed. So this is all before.
So item 1.
Yes, item 1, that council be briefed by the General Manager on the history of the Nunangola Art Gallery, the role of the board member, a report of the General Manager's time on the board, and the associated funding agreement. And then thank you, point number 2. After the briefing, council conduct a review of the Nunangola funding agreement, as contemplated by the resolution of the motion 2024/77 at the 17th of April 2024 ordinary meeting of council, including but not limited to external financial reports, and a business case presented by Nunangala Art Gallery. And then point number 3, pending the review, then continue with what's there. Nominate Councillor Nicole Smith to replace the General Manager, etc.
I'll just ask governance, is the contents of the amendment relevant to the motion in this case? Is it acceptable? Sorry. General Manager.
Mr. Mayor, can I give the manager a second? Thank you.
Sorry, I'll just let.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to speak to that.
2 seconds.
The relevance.
2 seconds, please.
The intention of the report is around nominating someone to represent the board rather than undertake a review or provide a briefing on the board and its function.
Okay. Look, for transparency, Councillor, I'll allow it. However, I don't believe it associates to this. The review will happen when the contract is up, and we do spend considerable money, and we want to appoint a councillor. So look, could I get a seconder for this, please? Councillor Russell, Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we could stop the clock, I just want to address that. So the board role only exists due to the funding agreement, and the funding agreement, it was resolved to review the funding agreement. So the two are entwined.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So now I'll start speaking to the amendment. So firstly, on a personal note, I am a big supporter of the arts and all of our art galleries, and I've had many pleasant afternoons viewing art at the Nunangala Art Gallery. And I think the previous council was very fortunate to have seized the opportunity. That was a 1 in a million opportunity to establish the Nunangala Art Gallery with the community. So what I'm proposing today is no reflection on the councillor who has nominated for the board role, and I know has a deep passion for the art gallery and has a very impressive background in contributing to the establishment of the gallery. Regarding the relevancy of the funding agreement, the reason for the councillor being a board member and the reason that the administrator gave was to oversee what is a very large and significant amount of money donated or given to the art gallery in the establishment stage, and it was also over a large period of time of 5 years. So the reason for this board member being suggested was to oversee ratepayers' funds. So therefore, the topic of the funding agreement is wholly relevant to appointing the board member. The funding of our wonderful gallery was a very hot topic, you'll remember, during the election campaign. So as with all topics, we need to be accountable for our decisions. And this one was very much asked by us in the candidate meetings. Again, the intention of the funding of the gallery was to assist the establishment stage of the gallery for 5 years and the operations of it. Nextly, the intention of the financial assistance scheme, where this funding comes from, is to assist various community organisations, not just one community organisation and not just one over a period of 8 years. So the question we need to answer is not whether we value this beautiful gallery, but does the art gallery need a further $1.5 million over the next 3 years, bringing our total contribution to $4 million? And we also need to ask what other community organisations may be in more need of this funding. And the Lydia Project, a community organisation, could I seek an extension of time, Mr Mayor?
Sure. Can you get a seconder? Well, sorry, how long?
1 minute.
Okay.
Less than 1
seconder?
minute.
All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Moylan, Councillor Foley, Councillor Russell. Those against? Councillor Fitzpatrick, Councillor Dent, Councillor Smith. You have another minute.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do appreciate it. So the other community organisations that may need funding more is the Lydia Project, a community organisation which is also in the establishment stage and addresses homelessness in the Shire because there are not enough agencies to support the homeless, believe it or not, in this Shire. More broadly, however, we need to conduct this review with the knowledge of other pressing issues that some residents, for instance, in Canyon Lee and Inverary Road can't even access their own properties due to the safety issues with an unsealed road. And we also need to keep in mind that we're giving back grant money tonight, potentially, because we can't afford a detention basin.
Okay. General Manager, most of this is about a review, I believe. Is there a review, could I ask? Is there a review coming on this?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, there is, as Councillor Moylan raised. All I would say is that we do currently have a deed in place with the gallery. That deed has a remaining few years on it. The reason why the deed is in place and that certainty of funding is because the way in which the gallery operates, it needs that certainty of funding to either attract additional funding and or plan for exhibitions at the gallery. Exhibitions generally are 18 months to 2 years in advance. And the gallery also employs staff, and the funding is also there to provide that certainty for the operations. Just to note that, and there is a deed in place. But yes, you are correct, there is a review to be undertaken, and yes, a big part of the work that we'll be undertaking as an organisation, as a council in 25-26 financial year is looking at opportunities for savings, for revenue, and how we can move forward in a financially sustainable way and meet the needs of the whole community.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Russell.
I have a question through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager. Does that mean that we're right on time for conducting a review if we start it now, this given an opportune time?
Through you, Mr Mayor, as noted in the resolution of the 17th of April 2024, the Council resolved, in part, that the matter be subject of a review in conjunction with the 25-26 budget process. So that, yes, we'll be undertaking that.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
I'm in support of this motion. To my knowledge, the deed was continued while we were under administration rather than it coming before a democratically elected council with the awareness of our financial statement, with the consideration of a special rate rise on the cards to be started to be considered in the third quarter of this financial year. We have many pressing issues to look at, and the sooner that we conduct this review for Nunangulla, the better for Nunangulla too, because if there is a need to review that deed and funding arrangement, then they have more time to put in place their business case for their future operations with funding certainty and also need to plan for funding certainty as a third party, not a council asset. So I commend Councillor Moylan's amendment here, and I too would like to say that I do believe that the work that Yanangula does is important in our community, and also acknowledge the enormous amount of hard work and community investment and fundraising which has gone into establishing the gallery, and I think we've given it a really good ground up, but I think that that will all be come into consideration through a review process.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Foley.
I don't believe that this amendment is necessary, given that we do have a review coming up regardless, and that we have council representation on the Nunangulla board, and I'm certain that Nunangulla would be very aware of their funding situation and the deed agreement that they have in place with council, and that a review of that deed is not going to come as a surprise to them. And so I don't think we need to go any further with it.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Smith. Sorry, you got right of reply. Sorry, is there anyone else that wants to speak to this? Councillor, you've already...
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead. Sorry, Councillor, you can speak to this amendment. Sorry, apologies. Go ahead with your question.
The original resolution, 17th of April 2024, referred to a review as part of the 25-26 budget process. Through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager, why didn't we have a review involving a business case, involving external financial reports and a holistic view of this funding model, rather than it being embedded in the long-term financial plan?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I will ask the CFO, who's been sitting patiently waiting for this moment. Mr Kuzmanowski, if you could come on down. Thank you.
Could you just repeat that question, Councillor Moylan? Thank you.
Certainly. Through you, Mr Mayor, to the appropriate officer. Given the resolution on the 17th of April 2024 meeting said that that the matter is subject to a review in conjunction with the 25-26 budget process. Why didn't we have a review involving external financial reports, a holistic analysis of this funding agreement, as a review systematically would involve, instead of it just being embedded in the 10-year financial plan?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I believe we discussed it in some of the strategy sessions that we did have, and it was brought to Council's attention that this was going to be an issue. I believe with the amount of information and being the first budget that Council was going through, the priorities were to get to basics, and going through the 25-26, working in the 25-26 financial year as a part of the 26-27 budget, we'll continue that conversation more in detail. But we did raise it at some of those strategic sessions, and it was discussed and brought to Council's attention at that point in time.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this?
I have a follow-up question. Through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager or the appropriate officer. Do you consider a review to just be a matter of highlighting a figure in a budget?
Through you, Mr Mayor, as I think as Mr Kuzmanowski was saying, it's not necessarily about a figure in a budget. So through the 25-26 financial year, we're reviewing, as we're all aware, reviewing expenditure and review. And as part of that, it is looking at the business case. What are the implications of continuing that funding or not continuing that funding? What are the benefits being delivered? How does that balance up with all the other priorities that Council has? And that's not a quick thing. So I guess what I'm saying is that it's not simply plucking a figure, it's looking at what value does the gallery contribute to the community and to the region. How does that weigh up or balance up? What's the business case if, using business language, management language, and how does that contribute to our strategic direction? How does that contribute to the fabric of our community, to the local economy?
Thank you. What else, Councillor Kent?
I'd like to speak in support really of Councillor Foley's comments and add a few of my own. This issue, I think, like the swimming pools, is one of those things that the new council needs to get its head around in the fullness of time, and we started to do that through, I support the comments of Mr Kumanowski, in the sense that we're all part of a process to develop the operational plan and budget. Everybody had the opportunity to comment on the funding that was in that budget for Nunangulla for this year and for the years, the next 3 years. So that process did take place. I was part of it. And this isn't like the pools. This is going to take some thinking, some collaboration, et cetera, in the months ahead, and it's really nothing to do, it's not directly related to the appointment of somebody to a board. And I also would speak against the motion in the sense of we're putting floral terms in there like external financial reports and business cases, and I'm fairly certain if we approve this today that the Nunangulla Regional Gallery wouldn't know what those external reports are and what the business case should contain. So this needs to be a collaborative process, us working with an important community partner. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I just want to address a misunderstanding.
Go ahead.
So when I refer to external reports, I'm referring to the financial reports of Nunangulla.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. So I would like to speak against this amendment. I think in relation to the financial reports and the reporting on Nunangulla, and this may well be a question for the General Manager to confirm, my understanding is that the annual reports, the financial reports, the impact on tourism and things like that has already been included in those reports we've received. Is that correct, General Manager?
Through Mr Mayor, that is correct. As part of the deed, they are the gallery are required to provide us with their financials as well as visitation. Mr Kuzmanowski meets with the gallery representatives and also reviews those with the board, or gallery reps. Thanks.
Okay, I now put...
Sorry, I've got questions through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager. What long-term financial plan scenario are we in currently in terms of our budget?
Listen, we're way off topic of the original motion,
Sorry,
let alone the amendment.
Sorry.
What are you talking about?
Well, in regards to the Chief Financial Officer's comments around the fact that the Nunangulla Gallery funding was brought up in councillor sessions talking about different scenarios in a long-term financial plan that we were adopting.
Councillor.
And if we were adopting,
Councillor.
say,
Councillor.
I'm asking which scenario are we in, and is that the scenario where we review the funding, is my first question, and then I have another question.
Councillor, we are way off topic from the original motion, let alone the amendment.
Well,
Gentlemen, would you like to answer this?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. To assist Councillor Russell. So the long-term financial plan was adopted at Council's meeting in June. That long-term financial plan clearly sets out the allocation of funding to Nunangulla and the projected position of the council. The long-term financial plan reflects the resolution of April 17, I think it is, of 2024 for the period, the years that council is committed to that deed, and that's reflected in the documents that the council adopted at its last meeting.
Look, I'm going to put it to the vote.
Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor.
I have one final question.
Okay, Councillor. Please be succinct.
If not now, when would council embark upon this review? In the second quarter of this financial year, in the third quarter of this financial year? If not now, when?
General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As councillors would be aware, in the adopted operational plan, there are a number of actions that talk about reviewing and looking at expenditure, revenue. It is happening in this 12-month period, councillor. I'm not sure if we had the opportunity to cover this when we met on Monday or Tuesday, but we are looking at a strategy session with councillors in September. As part of that, looking at the actions that the council has agreed to undertake in the 25-26 financial year and mapping those out. So we're very clear about the program.
Okay, I'll now put it to the vote. I'll now put this amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell, those against, Councillor Fitzpatrick, Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith. We're now back at the original officer's recommendation. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Okay, I'll now put it to the vote. All those in favour? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 9.3, Local Government Conference. I will move it with a change, and that change is that we allocate Councillor Moylan and Councillor Farrell alongside us at the conference. I'll just wait till those words are up. Could I get a seconder for that, please? Councillor Duffy, would anyone else like to speak to this? Okay, great. I'll put that. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Item 9.4, Asset Management Plans for Draft Exhibition. Could I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Duffy, a seconder. Councillor Foley. Councillor Duffy, would you like to speak to this? Anyone like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Yes. A comment, Mr Mayor, thank you. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge this amazing report that the staff have put together. The whole assessment management plan for the various asset classes has a lot of data in it, a lot of technical information, and yet it reads so easily. It's very holistic. And it's also very consistent for each of the asset classes. So I was very impressed by the whole document and the thinking behind it. I am also thrilled to see the resegmentation initiative for the asset management plans transport. It's exactly what we need. This resegmentation method will more accurately assess the condition of our roads and presumably have it more in line with community understanding so that we are more easily engaging with the community on the roads issue. I do want to highlight a couple of key pieces of information in the report. That the roads have been identified as the most important priority to the community in the survey in the last 6 years. Also, importantly, that the community surveys reveal a 59% performance gap in road conditions, and this is the largest performance gap margin in the last 5 years. So roads are continuing to be the most important issue for our community. Also, I'd like to highlight that we are below average in terms of our maintenance spend compared to the asset value. So we're below average with many of our neighbouring councils. 2 points I'd like to make, Mr Mayor, if I may, regarding funding. So our budget, the report highlights that our budget does not meet the needs of the assessment management plans. And there's an implication in the report that the way to solve this is through an increase in rates through a special rate variation. Whilst I don't oppose this policy going out to public exhibition, I definitely oppose the instinctive resort to an SRV increase without looking at all the other funding options and flying in the face of our commitment that we have made and resolved to looking at every other option, doing the hard work financially before just leaning on an SRV increase. And in conclusion, Mr Mayor, and if I could ask for an extension of time for 1 minute.
Sure. For a minute, can I get a seconder? All those in favour? Councillor, sorry, that's been denied, Councillor. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Okay, with that, I'll now put the Councillor Moylan.
I have a question.
Sure.
To you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager. What would be the point of approving this great solution if we can't then use the information if we don't have the appropriate funding?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Mr Robinson has been waiting patiently in the wings. So if Mr Robinson, if you could explain why we prepare the individual asset management plans and how they're used and the interplay, and Mr Kuzmanowski may want to join you in this, the interplay between the assets and the long-term financial plan.
Thank you, General Manager. Through you, Mr Mayor. In an ideal world, these asset management plans would have gone to Council at the same time as the resourcing strategy was being considered. The asset management plans and the asset management strategy within the resourcing plan are consistent, and so the asset management plans roll up to the asset management strategy. So in terms of why do we prepare these, it gives, I guess, a greater level of detail than what the asset management strategy is. We can think of it as if it's expanded upon and then drilled down in, such that rather than seeing a single column for transport, we can instead see roads, footpaths, curb and gutter, bus shelters in that sense. So that's the benefit of having the distinct asset management plans. In terms of I don't think the asset management plans just describe the current state of play in that sense. And so it highlights where we're currently at. It gives good information on what do we have, what condition is it in, what are our drivers for level of service, and then planning that out across a 10-year period to show is there a gap or not. That's the purpose of the asset management plans, and I believe they deliver on that.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Okay, with that, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 9.5, we need to table the annual returns of myself and Mr McAllister. Could I get I'll move that. Could I get a seconder, please? Councillor Duffy. Anyone else like to speak to this? Okay, I'll now put the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. 9.6, grant withdrawal. Could I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Duffy. Could I get a seconder? Councillor Foley. Would Councillor Duffy? Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Champion.
I have a couple of questions through you, Mr Mayor.
Sure.
To the General Manager. I would like to understand exactly how untenable this project has become financially. My understanding is that if we decided the project is too critical to abandon and needed to be funded, we would need to allocate quite a large sum of money to cover the agreement with the golf club, to compensate them for the easement and for the interruption to their business, neither of which can be covered by DQ grant funding. Given we've already allocated $500,000 in matched funding and $187,000, in additional funding, how much more would we have to pay to meet the needs of the project?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr McAllister, could you also explain a bit of the history of the project as well as the gap? Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, General Manager. Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, so this project originally originated back in 2003 as part of a flood study and has been, I'm going to say, kicked around for the last 20 odd years. Through that time, there's been a series of effectively design changes leading through to the point now where we effectively, in 2023, we received funding to actually implement the plan. As part of going through that, we have a funding deed which has very strict timelines, and those timelines mean that we have to have the project implemented and completed by June 2026. So it's very, very, very tight timeframes, and hence the paper that went to the council meeting, February council meeting this year, outlining our concerns around delayed negotiations and, if we couldn't reach an agreement, potential complications with settlement or getting the project finalised. Through those negotiations, effectively there was an outcome determined. That actually increased the cost of the project to around $2.7 million. Through the funding agreement originally, they cover, or the costs cover certain elements of it. And we were in discussions with the department around a variation to that agreement, still honouring the 3-to-1 ratio, which would actually allow the project to be delivered, where the department funded $2 million and we funded the effectively $700,000 balance. Through the final processes of the variation and discussion with the department, they came back and outlined that some key costs associated around particularly the acquisition of the easement, although we're not purchasing land, we're purchasing rights over land. So the acquisition of the easement and the interruption to business, so a compensation component, is not covered under the grant guidelines. So that additional variation that we applied for, which was $500,000, would be additional money that would have to be borne by council to deliver the project.
Sorry, can I just clarify that last number was $500,000? That's additional to what we've already committed?
Correct, councillor. It would be an additional $500,000.
Just a follow-up question or two, please, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, excuse me. Given that this does, question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the General Manager. Given that the detention basin does seem like critical disaster resilience infrastructure, and we've been working towards it for, sounds like, over 2 decades, are there any alternative pathways or possible projects to mitigate flooding in this part of Bowral that we can pursue?
General Manager.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and back to Mr. McAllister. Thank you.
For this one, councillor, I might actually refer to Manager of Assets, given being flood-related and his knowledge in the area.
Thank you, General Manager. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd say no. There are no other mitigation measures for that specific location. Detention basins are the most effective measure, but they are constrained by where they can be located. So it is rare that you are able to actually find a location for one within an urban setting. If you remember our discussions around with Mittagong Pool and the flooding there, that a detention basin would be great in that location, but there just isn't any spot available. And essentially that is looking like that what might be the case for this location. It's not so much then that the project is unviable necessarily in and of itself. It's more so just that right now, with the restrictions on the grant and council's current financial position, I would advise that it's not a viable project for now, and the estimated cost of the project is significantly more than what it was back when it was first assessed in the flood study in 2005. And so given that there's currently a review of the Bowral floodplain risk management study currently being done now, the Bowral golf course basins can be reassessed through that with an updated and more realistic cost estimate. And then that assessment can be done again as to if it is a worthwhile, like a value for money investment or not. Because there are a whole host of different flood mitigation things that can always be pursued, but through those risk management plans, it's a balance between what's the damage caused and the investment, and is that a worthwhile investment. So that could be redone through this updated flood study. And if it still comes out as a suitable investment, then it can be pursued again through future grant programs.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more question through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a bit of a follow-up for that. So it sounds like, given that we have the review of the flood study happening at the moment, would it be correct to say that there are potential avenues to persisting with the planning of this project, just not under the current plan, under the current grant? And sorry, I'm asking in a negative. It's not helpful. Are there any other potential avenues to persisting with the planning of this specific project? And would we be seeking or intending to seek any other sources of funding?
So there is an annual floodplain grant program that's administered by DQ for flood mitigation projects like this that are identified through flood studies. So that's an annual program that's always available. Unfortunately, it is funded, 2 to 1. And so this was a unique opportunity where council could deliver it with a 3 to 1 funding ratio, similar to Retford Farm Detention Basin. So there's no guarantee that a 3 to 1 opportunity would exist, but 2 to 1 opportunities are annually available. But I think this gives us a good opportunity to rerun the project with an updated estimate through that consideration process, and then we can see if it is still identified as a recommended project through the flood study, then it would be a strong candidate through that DQ administered program. But council would need to first fully fund the easement formalisation before we can resubmit, which would be a decision point as to whether that is a worthwhile investment or not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Molam.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Given this is considered a financial need, what are the, through you, Mr Mayor, to the appropriate officer, what would the timeframes be within which we could consider a reallocation of funds to still be able to have the grant?
General Manager.
Through Mr Mayor, I think there's two considerations. One's the financial, one's the deliverability to meet the grant requirements. In terms of budget adjustments, that opportunity comes at the end of September review. The council could consider allocating funds, but we'd need to identify where those funds would come from and what other projects would be deferred. So normally that would happen as a result of the end of quarter budget review that comes before you. I think the other issue that Mr McAllister might wish just to clarify is the timing and the ability to actually deliver the project within the commitment under the agreement, Mr McAllister.
Through you, General Manager, yes, I can confirm that discussions with the department have indicated that there will be no extensions to the timeframe to deliver the project, and the project must be delivered in full by June 2026.
Thank you. Okay, now I'd like to speak to this. I'll now put this to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 9.7, proposal amend the land use table for E1 local centre zones. Could I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Champion, a seconder. Councillor Kent. Councillor Champion.
Thank you. I have a question about this through you, Mr Mayor, to the GM. In your view, or the view of our expert planners, is there any chance that this amendment to the WLEP would increase the likelihood of housing stock that's currently providing long-term accommodation for residents being transformed into short-term rentals for tourist accommodation? And if this were to happen, what might be the scale of the impact?
General Manager.
Looking at Mr McCabe, I think, in the first instance.
Through you, General Manager. Sorry, just a point of clarity on the question. You said increased housing stock, or are you saying existing housing stock?
I think I confidently read out a typo. Would it increase the likelihood of housing stock that's currently providing long-term accommodation? Increase the likelihood, not the housing stock itself. Yep.
For you, General Manager. Looking at this, and this change first came about in 2023 when it was B1 and B2. And so looking at some town centres, for example, B2 permitted these tourism functions, what you're considering, and they've been transferred to prohibited since 2023. So it's only been 2 years, okay? So they're permitted in B2 before then. So if you looked at history and whether developers, and when I say developers, that could be anyone, it's not property developers themselves, owners or whatever, the mechanism or the lever was there 2 years ago. So looking at history, did it stimulate a lot of replacement of housing for these tourism accommodation? No, I don't think so. But, you know, as a developer or a property owner, they can always look at this permitted use with consent as an opportunity. But I don't think it would reduce the existing stock to a great degree, particularly that we're talking about the blue zone in our town centres, which is a commercial zone. It's not a residential zone.
Thank you. Any more questions?
No, thank you. That's all.
Okay. Sorry, would anyone like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Yes, I'm in favour of this. I think it will support our local economy, and once the local economy is better supported, more jobs come, more employment, and then this flows through to families and people who can live, work and play here. Which is good for everybody. And then hopefully that flows through to the type of developments that we have, where we have more diversity in our housing stock. In terms of the overall, from my reading, the DA process determines the suitability of the specific site for these types of visitor accommodation developments. But secondly, the DA process needs to satisfy clause 7.11 of the LEP to make sure that it's appropriate for the neighbourhood and for the area. And this clause, in summary, makes sure that the DAs are in context with the residential character, the amenity and the desired future character of the site. But also, what I like about it, this proposal does not affect current complying development pathways. So I have no objection to this planning proposal being submitted to the Gateway determination, and I think it will only support our local economy and also clean up the actual zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Russell.
I concur with Councillor Champion's concerns about the potential for long-term rental accommodation, shop-top housing and so forth being co-opted for short-term financial gain. I think councils play a key role in the current challenges of having affordable rental property, or indeed any rental property available in the Southern Highlands, when not everyone can afford to have a home. We do have hotels and motels. We do have outlying tourist and visitor accommodation, which has just been enabled further by the adoption of the farm stay accommodation to provide more opportunities for tourism over and above long-term rentals. I think at this particular juncture, when we know we're in a housing crisis, would be a step in the wrong direction. I think as a council we need to find the levers that we can pull to ensure that we're creating that capacity for rental housing, particularly for all of those people who work in our tourist and visitor industry. And I have a question as well that's on slightly different take, but how long does...
Finished speaking?
Yeah, I am finished speaking. How long does a planning proposal like this take to put together? How many hours?
And Manager.
Mr. McCabe.
For you, General Manager, it's hard for me to comment on staff hours, but in relation to time frame, the journey for an amendment to an LEP to be made, generally, I would say the average is somewhere between 12 and 18 months. They require the Minister requires these amendments to go through a local planning panel if one is constituted, which we have. Every time it comes up to the chamber, you're required to do community consultation. Then there is the professional layer of analysis. So it's usually 12 to 18 months from from inception through to actually making the amendment.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, sorry, I've got it. Oh, can I have another question? Sorry, Councillor Smith. What was the initial genesis of this planning proposal coming to council? Where did it was loosely referred to in the documents, but who was the community that were consulted that has led it to us here now?
General Manager.
Through Mr Mayor, I may ask Ms Stannard to actually respond, given her long history and also working on our LEPs. So, Ms Stannard.
Yes, the two primary initiators were Robertson and Penrose. So Penrose seeking initially some more E1 zoned land, and Robertson seeking to reinstate what was permitted in the B2 zone prior to the conversion to the E zone. So before we proceed with looking at Penrose particularly, we wanted to be sure that the E1 zone contained the full list of land uses that should apply. So there is local support, particularly to reinstate what was there before and has been taken away. So they're now relying on existing use rights rather than the local environmental plan. And the Robertson Place plan itself seeks to have this reinstated. So they were the prime community, but more broadly, a sense that there shouldn't have been any loss of land use capacity with that amendment. And we were always assured by the department that that would not occur. And when we realised that it had occurred, we felt we needed to proceed to rectify it.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I have a question. Councillor Russell mentioned farm stays here, but my understanding of this E1 local centre zone is that this would not be in relation to farm stays. So through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and Mr McCabe.
Through you, General Manager, if you refer to the Wingecarribee Local Environmental Plan Dictionary for tourism and visitor accommodation, it enables various outcomes. So backpacker accommodation, bed and breakfast accommodation, hotel or motel accommodation, service departments and farm stay accommodation. However, that is a definition in a dictionary. You then have to apply that definition to the actual zone, and the zoning is not a rural zone.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
And just one more question. So my understanding then is that this is really, it's both come from the community, it's been community-led, and this is more of a tidy up and making it more consistent through the Mayor to the General Manager.
General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and Ms Stannard is nodding at me, so your summation is correct. Thanks, Councillor Smith.
Apologies. I had a full blank out. I was thinking about something completely different. I apologise. I'm a bit tired. Been a big meeting. Councillor Champion, would you like a right of reply?
Sorry, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the appropriate officer, am I correct in understanding that this planning policy will not impact tiny homes on acreage?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Mr McCabe is in a position to answer that. Thank you.
Through you, General Manager, yes, has no impact on rural land at all.
Councillor Kent.
Question to the General Manager through you, Mr Mayor, please. When Ms Stannard made the comments about Penrose and Robertson feedback or consultation community-led, I'm just interested whether they were kind of business representations or they were general community representations.
Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Ms Stannard?
They were from both.
Thank you. Okay, would else like to speak? Sorry?
I'll just keep going. So further to Councillor Russell's input to this one, basically, and building on Councillor Champion's initial questions, when I look at the E1, the 4 uses, backpackers accommodation, bed and breakfast, farm stays outside of it, hotel and motel accommodation, service departments. When I look at E1, say in a place like Robertson, it appears to me there's material numbers of residential homes in that particular village encompassed within E1. And I know we need to balance business needs with social needs, but I guess my question to the General Manager through you, Mr Mayor, is particularly in the bed and breakfast space, it just doesn't feel, when we've got rental squeeze, when we've got a lack of housing supply, I've heard everything that others have raised and the responses to questions. It just doesn't feel like, this doesn't feel right to me. So I guess the question is, are there any social impacts to, particularly in the bed and breakfast aspect of this? Because I'm just not that comfortable with suburban houses being turned into, bed and breakfast accommodation solely as a business when we're looking at a place like Robertson where there's a number of homes, suburban homes on the main street, and we simply don't have a massive supply of suburban homes for regular long-term accommodation.
General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr McCabe.
Through you, General Manager, I will make a point about our residential zones. Many of them already permit, with consent, bed and breakfast. That facility's there well beyond the E1 zone. In relation to social impact, I can only go back to the example which I spoke about earlier. When you mentioned Robertson, Robertson had B2. 2 years ago, these exact permissibilities were allowed. Robertson has been there in place. I'm not sure the year it was established, that town, but these opportunities have been there for decades. So what you see there today is probably what was available 2 years ago, and we're simply reinstating that.
Thank you. Councillor Champion, would you like Councillor
Farrell? My understanding is that all we're doing is reversing what was done in 23 by changing the B2 back to E1 and restricting that. All we're doing is putting it back to B2 conditions. So I don't see that restricting that to hotel and motel accommodation in the likes of Robertson and Penrose and other villages is going to make any difference. How many hotel motels have been built in the last 3 decades around here? So if we restrict it to motel hotels in Robertson, Penrose, whatever, they're not going to get built anyway. So, and as far as long-term rentals go, people are getting out of long-term rentals in droves because of the draconian rules that are applied now to landlords. So I don't see anybody buying a property there to turn it into a rental property, long-term rental property. And this proposal will help these villages with their tourist accommodation. We're already short of tourist accommodation in the area. So all I can see is it helping the villages with a little bit more income.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Chair, would you like your right of reply?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just want to quickly say that I approach this report with a fair amount of caution because I'm generally worried about housing pressures, and I wanted to know more about the potential impacts for increasing short-term rentals and the impacts that that would have on the cost and availability of housing for residents, as no one needs reminding that we're in a housing crisis. We don't have to look far to our neighbours in the Shoalhaven, who I understand have some areas with more than 50% of housing chewed up by short-term rental stock and locals being pushed out of their homes. I consider that a warning about what can happen when we don't regulate accommodation carefully. However, thanks for your answers from the staff. I am satisfied that the impacts of this amendment to the WLEP are likely to be small and to avoid those unintended consequences, and will further support the character, heritage and local visitor economy of our smaller towns and meet the requests of the villagers that asked for it in the first place.
Thank you. I'll now put the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Moylan, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those against? Councillor Kent, Councillor Russell. It's carried. Item 9.8, Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition and Control System Support and Maintenance Tender Evaluation. Could I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Smith. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Moylan. Councillor Smith. Good. Would you like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Only to say, Mr Mayor, I'm delighted to see a local supplier being successful in this tender with Concept Engineering Services Proprietary Limited, based in Mittagong, and working alongside the other supplier, Safe Group Automation, who has already got great experience and expertise with the council.
Thank you, Councillor. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Okay, I'll now put it to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. 9.10, Investments Report. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Kent. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Foley. Councillor Kent.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager, I'd just like to ask a question. My reading of the outcome of the full 12-year cycle for this investment report is that we're approximately 30%. We have a great return, basically in interest of 30% more than the original plan. Is that correct?
General Manager.
Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, that is correct. And I should just draw the councillor's attention to the addendum that was circulated this afternoon. Thank you, Councillor Kent, for your work and your feedback in raising that. So the CFO has issued an addendum. There was just an adding up error. That does not change the result. You are correct. We've had a much better than budget anticipated result. It was just one particular column wasn't quite where it should be, but result exactly the same.
Thank you. Anything further?
Thank you very much for that confirmation. I'd just like to say that there's times in this chamber when we have issues we all don't agree on and things get tense, but having a 30% increase in interest earned over a 12-month cycle, resulting in 2.6 million additional money in the coffers, hopefully that's a cause of celebration for all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, anyone else like to speak to this? Okay, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 9.11, Flood Risk Management Advisory Committee meeting minutes. Could I get a mover for this, please? Councillor.
Oh, that was an exception.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
So we're done? What have I missed? Is that it?
That is it.
Sorry about that. Okay, with that, I will now close the meeting at 6:02.